know that feeling when you're totally winning a chess game but go on to lose the game? That's why you've clicked on this video, and it all comes down to these 4 errors. Today, we're going to be going each of these 4 errors so that you can win all those games which you were winning in the first place, so that you can maximize your wins and minimize your losses. Let's get straight into it. The first error you're making is trying to go for checkmate too quickly. To illustrate this for you, I've set up this position. We're playing as white and we're up a piece. As you guys can see from the eval bar, white is totally winning and we're +2. An example of going for a checkmate too quickly, or in this case unprepared, would be playing this move knight g5. And now you can see that the eval bar now drops down all the way to equal. But you may be thinking, well, surely the move knight g5 is a good move because it simply threatens checkmate on the h7 square. Well, the point is, because you've gone for checkmate too quickly, black now has this move queen h6. And you may be thinking, well, what's the point of queen h6? Well, first of all, it defends the checkmate. Second of all, it attacks your knight. And third of all, and the most dangerous of all, it threatens checkmate on the h1 square. And this is very, very important because now for white, there is only one move that actually even draws the game, and that is the move queen h7 check. And now you trade queens and you get into this position. But this is totally equal, and that's a bad result for you, especially seeing that you had a +2 position to start off with. But what happens if we don't find the best move, queen takes h7, and instead try and block the checkmate with something like knight e4? Well, that's when things can get even worse, because if black plays the best moves, which is this sequence right here, then we can actually be -2 ourselves from what was a +2 position. And that is all because in this position, we played the move knight g5, trying to rush and go for checkmate too quickly. So instead, don't rush, get your pieces into the correct positions, and always calculate to see what counterattacks your opponent has, because just because they're down in material, it doesn't mean they can't checkmate you. Now time for error number 2. The second error you're making is neglecting king safety when you're totally winning. To explain this concept to you guys, I'm going to show you this position, where we're playing as white, we're up a piece, and also, as you can see from the evaluation bar, we have a +4 position, so we're totally winning. Now, we decide to play this move long castles, one of the best moves here in this position for white, and black decides to try and kick our knight out with the move f5. We trade, they capture back, and we follow up with the best move knight h6 check, forcing the king to move away. In this case, they decide to go to the f8 square. Now we follow up again with the best move queen d6 check, and black blocks with rook e7, just like so, the best move as well. Now, in this position, it is +5.2 for white, as you guys can see here from the evaluation bar. So we are totally winning, and the only way in which we can lose this, and the only way in which black can win this, is if we blunder seriously badly. Now, here are 2 main things to note here as a viewer. First of all, this queen is doing a great job pinning this rook on e7 to the king on the f8 square. And second of all, some of you guys may realize that the queen used to be on the d2 square, but now that it has traveled to d6, there is no one guarding this second rank, which is very, very important in terms of neglecting king safety, because this is what this whole error is all about. Now, in this position, white might think that they're going to take advantage of the fact that the rook is on e7 and that it is being pinned to the king, and white plays the move bishop g5. But now, you can see that the eval bar has suddenly plummeted into black's favor. But the point is, because there is no one guarding this second rank and we have neglected our king's safety, black now has a forced mate in 3. For example, it would be queen a3 check. Our king could move to multiple different places, but the point is, it is always going to be mate in 2 or mate in 1. If we were to go to b1, it would be checkmate, just for an example, just like so, supported by the bishop. So, some of you guys may be thinking, well, what would we do instead of bishop g5? Well, instead of bishop g5, we could simply be patient. This rook isn't going to go anywhere, and this queen isn't going to come in here if we play this move, rook h2. And the point is now, as you can see, our eval bar is still where it was before, because the whole point is we have simply guarded our second rank. This rook is now doing the job of what the queen used to do when it was on the d1 square, sorry, the d2 square, and the point is now this queen is doing a great job up on this side of the board, whilst the rook is doing what the queen used to do, so now our pieces are coordinating in a beautiful way. Because now, let's say black wanted to play the move queen a3 check anyway, well, after king b1, there is simply no checkmate here for black. There is no mate on a2 or b2, because this rook is simply doing a fantastic job guarding our second rank. And by the way, let's say they play a move such as b4, for example, Well now, remember we played the move bishop g5 earlier and it was a blunder? Well now, because our rook is simply guarding our king in a beautiful way, because we haven't neglected our king's safety, now we're free to play this move bishop g5. Our king is totally safe and now their king is the one under danger. And for reference, it is actually a checkmate in 8 here for white. So the moral of the story is, be patient, don't neglect your king's safety, and make sure your king is defended before going out for an attack. Because going for an attack is great, but there's no point in doing it when you blunder mate in 3. Now time for error number 3. The third error you're making in chess is not taking the time to prevent your opponent's desperation strategies. We've all been there. When we're down a material, sometimes we try to have sneaky one-move threats to win our opponent's queen or to perhaps even go for checkmate, in the hope that our opponent won't notice because they're up in material and then we win the game. When we know that really 99% of the time, these checkmate threats or queen threats probably won't work. But what do we do when our opponent tries this against us? Well, I've got 3 positions to show you guys and some examples of how you can stop them. First of all, let's say we are playing white in this position and black decides to play the move queen c6. First of all, we have to identify the threat. The threat in this position is, of course, this battery right here is aiming their whole army towards this g2 pawn, which in this case would be checkmate. So how do we stop this? There are a few ways in which we can stop this. The computer likes this move queen e4, offering a trade of queens, and also obviously blocking this queen from coming to g2, but also a move such as f3 would be perfectly sufficient in this position, simply blocking the queen from coming to the g2 square. Now, let's look at the next position, where in this position, white decides to play this move rook f1. Now, what is the threat? Well, as the arrows show you, the threat is this move rook d1. Let's say black was to do nothing about it and played this move knight a5. Well, the point is now, white has this move rook d1, and on the next move picks up the queen on the d7 square, of course once the king moves just like so. A beautiful skewer tactic. So what could black do about this? Well, black has many things, but the top computer move here is this move queen g4, simply getting out of the skewer and also giving a check on the king just like so, and then of course once the king moves somewhere, then you simply play the game of chess from here. But the point is the direct threat of rook d1 was averted, and now black has the upper hand as it did before. Now let's look at the final position, where in this position, white decides to play this move knight e3. This time the threat could be a little bit more sneaky. Now, some of you guys may have noticed that this threat was the move knight d5 with the fork on the king, the rook, and also the queen. I must say, a beautiful fork. Let's say black was to do nothing about it with the move a5, well then we have this move knight d5, and then of course, once the king moves, we pick up the queen, and now white is totally winning. So, what can black do about this? Well, it's very, very simple. Black could take a little time to think, they could play this move queen b5 check, attacking the king is forced to move, and the point is now there is no knight d5 check because the queen is simply defending it, and there is no fork, and now black is totally safe and has a -8 position, so black is totally winning and goes on to win the game. Now time for error number 4. The fourth error you're making when you're up in material in chess kind of umbrellas over everything we've just looked at, and it is you're getting complacent in your games when you're up in material. Now, of course, we've all done it, and it can be done in many different ways. Getting complacent can be as crazy as trying to make 8 queens and then accidentally stalemating, or it can be as simple as simply losing concentration just because you're up a piece and then going on to lose the game. My advice here is, it's great to have that winning feeling after the game, but don't start losing concentration just because you think you've won during the game. My main advice is to stay concentrated, get the job done during the game, and then enjoy that winning feeling after. Because if you start to lose concentration and get complacent, then there are chances for your opponent to get back in the game, and that is how you lose from winning positions. So the main thing is, stay concentrated, get the job done, and win the game, and be happy after that. Now time for the outro. I really hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful. Remember, next time you're up in material, keep an eye out for those mistakes and how to avoid them, so that you can win that game when you're in that winning position. Links are in the description, like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and see you in the next one. Bye bye.